Yesterday's price is not today's price.
What is up, market watchers? You are stuck with Matt and Brian here tonight as we record the second of two special episodes this week. It's a little different this time. Earlier today, Todd and I recorded a deeper dive into some 2023 rookie values. So make sure you check that one out if you haven't already. But on this episode, Matt and I are going to break down some non-rookie topics. So that's, including you got to hit on Brock Purdy, who's possibly an MVP candidate. What's his dynasty QB landscape looking like? Who are the top line tight ends and where are we ranking them? We're going to touch on that a bit. And then some vets that are trending up and down. I'm sure James Cook is going to get brought up, a couple other hot items. So Matt, we are happy to be here. It's feeling a little different. Excited to change it up. As they say, the variety is the spice of life. So why don't you just kick us right off? Let's jump into Purdy here. Pause.
Yeah, Brock Purdy, he just keeps crushing it, man. We've been talking about the last couple of weeks. Like a few weeks ago, you and Todd were kind of surprised. I said Purdy should be worth 2 firsts. I think Brock Purdy should be worth 2 first-round picks. We'll say mid-first, two mid-first. You're still not there yet, correct?
I'm not. So before we go too deep into this, Matt, can you give us an idea? You say 2 firsts. How many quarterbacks are worth at least 2 firsts for you?
I think 13 of them.
Okay.
So I'll mention the 7 off gate that nobody should have a problem with. We don't need to spend any time. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. Those 7 are the top 7 on KTC. Everybody would probably pay 3 firsts for them or close to that. Then Anthony Richardson, he's worth 2 firsts. Everybody, I think, agrees with that. Trevor Lawrence is QB9. I think Trevor Lawrence is worth 2 firsts, but I don't think he's worth more than Brock Purdy. So
you listed 7 guys. The undeniable 7. Then you listed Anthony Richardson, and then the next person you listed is Trevor Lawrence. So is that?
I'm just going in order on KTC right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Not my order. So Trevor is QB9 on KTC right now. I think he's worth 2 firsts. Tua is probably who I'd have the lowest of the 13 QBs I'm looking at. He's QB10 on KTC. I think Tua is worth 2 firsts, but he might be the last person I think is worth that on this list. Brock Purdy, I would take. Brock Purdy is QB11 on KTC. I would take Brock Purdy over Tua straight up right now.
What about Dak?
Dak, I was going to say Dak is next. Dak is QB12. Dak is worth 2 firsts. And Dak and Brock is tough for me, man. I think I would take Brock Purdy. I don't feel great about it. I don't know if Dak's stinker last week, which kind of annoyed me, is affecting my judgment at all because he was absolutely crushing it before then. But Purdy's just 6 years younger, so 6-7 years younger, and he's producing the same as Dak. I don't think that's going to change in the next couple of years. It's hard to make a case that Dak should be worth more than Brock right now, I think. And then the last guy on that that is worth 2 first-round picks, I think, is Kyler Murray. Kyler is QB13. And Kyler is a guy that I might take over Dak and Brock and Tua, actually, and maybe Trevor because of the rushing upside. So Kyler is kind of a harder one for me to value. But I think the list ends there. I'm not paying 2 firsts for Jordan Love, who I would have next, even though Keep Trade Cut very stupidly has Justin Fields 1 spot above Jordan Love. I would not pay 2 firsts for Justin Fields, obviously. So I think we have 13 quarterbacks that are probably worth 2 first-round picks. Tua, Kyler, Brock, Trevor, Dak being like the worst of that group.
It's interesting because that list has a couple of guys that are notably not Konami or rushing quarterbacks or any threat of that, right? And Tua is someone that, and maybe this is my biases, whatever it is. The last couple of years, it feels like he comes out like a bat out of hell, and then he just kind of like, when you need him the most, is kind of, for lack of a better term, like shrivels up points wise. And I don't know if that's later season fatigue thing or this or that thing or injuries are building up. I don't know what that is.
The Tua thing is hard to explain.
Yeah, like I want to say I would prefer Tua. First of all, I have a couple of the guys that you listed as even or behind him. I have a definitely above Brock Purdy, but I felt comfortable having Brock Purdy at QB 13. So to me, the disagreement is more of the two first attachment and what that value is versus the ranking for us, differences wise. So that's like that. I guess that's not too exciting to say that, but I think that's the honest truth. And this is kind of segueing into our next couple questions I wanted to ask you within again staying on Brock Purdy. Where do you see him or where do you think he should be going in a super flex startup this offseason?
I think he should be going early second round. I think that's probably where he ends up, or early to mid second. I think. I don't think he falls past round 2. I'd be shocked actually. He's not falling past round 2 in any draft I'm in. I'll say that.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, but this is exactly why our values don't match and why we disagree. For example, last year I looked at a couple different offseason drafts we did with, like the SVB Jacob draft. The QB 13 was like the 3-4 turn.
Yeah.
So if Brock Purdy's going in round 2, where I think, a pretty sharp group was taking that range-ish of quarterback in a round or 2 later, that is concerning to me in terms of rostership for sure.
I don't think it's that. I mean, it's easily explainable. I think the QBs outside the top 7 look a lot deeper. Like QB 8 through 13 looks way better than it did a year ago because you have Anthony Richardson now, you have CJ Stroud now, you have Brock Purdy who belongs in this group now, you have Tua putting together a healthy season. You have Dak playing the best season of his career. It makes sense to me that QB 8 through 13 is valued a lot higher than it was 12 months ago.
But who are you in that situation? Like there's 3, 4, 5, 6 receivers that people are going to be over the moon about. There's going to be 2, 3 running backs.
I don't know. I do know that we placed a high value emphasis on starting quarterbacks with stability. It's the same reason. So I would say this. Do you have a problem with Justin Herbert's ADP? Because he's going to go in the middle of the first round in startups.
No.
What would you pay on top of Brock Purdy to acquire Justin Herbert? You have Brock Purdy. Someone says, I want your 2024 107. You have Brock Purdy and you have the 107 in this rookie draft. Are you paying the 107 on top of Brock Purdy for Justin Herbert?
Yeah, not even thinking twice about it.
Oh, so you'd pay like an early first on top of Brock Purdy for Justin Herbert.
We just don't value what the same for Brock Purdy. Like he's just a guy for me. Like a guy that's solid. I'm not comparing him to Jimmy G. That was what I was, what I used to compare him to. He's not that. I totally agree there. I just think it's not a good bet to. It just doesn't feel like a good bet to me, and I'm prepared to be wrong if that's the case, or adjust my takes for sure. And the last thing I want to touch on Purdy, I would trade for Purdy if I had 109, 108 of 2024, but the top 7 picks, I'm not trading for Brock Purdy, and you're going to hate that.
If you had said top 6, I might have disagreed, but understood. But after Neighbors and Bowers, I mean, yeah, some other guy will probably show up, right?
If we're talking Jaden Daniels, we're talking JJ McCarthy. That's 4 quarterbacks: Marvin Harrison Jr., Neighbors, Bowers.
Yeah, we will not agree on JJ McCarthy. Absolutely no. JJ McCarthy could get drafted first overall, and I'm taking Brock Purdy over him. That wouldn't happen anyway. But like JJ McCarthy has some serious prove-it shit to do at the next level for me anyway.
He'd be the back end of it anyways. But yeah, and then there's some receivers that, depending on where they land and stuff like that, it's interesting. But anyway, so we're talking Brock Purdy for too much time already, but why don't we transfer, I'm curious to see what your list. I ranked for the tight ends top 8. And the reason this is a smooth transition, people, is George Kittle is on my list, and I'm curious if George Kittle is on your list.
I don't think so. Top 8. I mean,
why don't we break down who's your number? Who's your number 1?
Laporta. I think we're going to agree on that, but I'm going to say that Laporta is overvalued, even though I think he's tight end 1 and he should be. I don't think there should be a gap between him and the other tight ends.
Who's tight end 2?
McBride.
Okay, we agree so far. Who's 3?
Mark Andrews.
Okay, first disagreement, but I have tiered breakup. So I have a tier 1A and tier 1B. And tier 1A is the first 3 guys that we listed, a little bit younger.
Yeah.
Tier 1B, Andrews. So when I say tiers, I'm not trading one for the other, even in that 1A, 1B, straight up. So did reference Jake was oh, why didn't you take my Andrews for your Hawkinson?
Oh, yeah.
That sort of thing. So that's just for clarification. Okay, so you had Andrews 3. Who's 4?
I don't love doing it, but I gotta say Hawkinson. Okay. Lower than 4 feels a little disrespectful after what he's done this year.
Yeah, that's kind of where I've been. I've always been lower on him, but it's just kind of okay. So so the top 4, I think we all we're going to agree that it was going to be in some order, that 4, and it's kind of a jumbled week to week, month to month kind of thing. So who's 5?
5 for me would be Kyle Pitts. And I want to have him higher than this. It's the lowest it's the highest I could go, actually. I wanted to go. I can't in good conscience put him above Hawkinson still, even though I would really like to, because I think he's a much better player.
I agree with you. 5, Pitts. Who's 6?
Man, by default, I guess we're going to give it to Dalton Kincaid here. And so you're going to notice that I'm going to keep avoiding saying Travis Kelce for a minute, but go ahead.
So I agree. The 5 and 6 I agree with. I have them in a tier of their own of potential guys that I want to put in front of Hawkinson and potentially McBride, honestly, if I'm being totally transparent. But both those guys you can't, and they could absolutely both suck in a year or 2, in my opinion. So that's where my concerns are.
I think the hype is very real and justified with McBride. I think McBride is fucking awesome, man.
It's just a small sample size.
It's a small sample. It's a small sample, but it's hard to ignore some of the stuff he's doing over now. It's 5 to 6 weeks at this point.
Listen. I moved him up for sure. He's way up my list now. I think I agree. He's not someone that I think is even remotely obtainable in most leagues that you're in, people with your tight end premium, especially. I don't think he's even someone that you can even knock on the door and ask them if it's kind of like Kyle Pitts a year or 2 ago, where it's just you can give me your whole team and all of your picks and I'll trade him kind of thing.
Man, those were the days, man. People trading JJ straight up for Pitts and shit.
I'm sick to my stomach. I don't even want to go back and look at DMs of trades that I'm certain I declined that were just absolute massive wins that I just completely dismissed and laughed in their face.
No doubt. Everybody's done that with Pitts, I'm sure. So we have the top 6, and then I think we're probably both going to say Kelce at 7, right? At some point, you have to put Kelce in there.
Yeah. So for me, I have Kelce and Kittle 7 and 8, and I put them in a tier together for different reasons or similar reasons. Kelce, is he getting phased out by Rashee Rice targets? Todd and I kind of talked about that a little bit on the rookie. Is he getting the zone over the middle targets, that type of stuff that Kelce usually ate on? Is he hurt? Is he going to retire? Is he gonna go marry a pop star? Who the hell knows? So
we've been kind of disagreeing on this the last week or 2. I think Kelce is about toast, man. I don't want to go into I don't want to get stuck holding any bags. I got one Kelce share in 20 leagues. and I'm going to be trying to move that pick or trying to move that chair this offseason. He's kind of a sunset guy for you, right? You have him, you're just going to ride him until the wheels fall off.
Yeah, I mean, unless someone's like, hey, well, I'll pay what they were going to pay in the beginning or the middle of the season. Yeah, because it's like I just
You're
don't
not
see
trading
the
him
point.
for like Pat Fryermuth this offseason just to get younger at the position.
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it for like that range of guy at all because if it's one guy, it's another guy. Like Todd and I joked on the episode, it was like tight ends are like after the first 5 or 6, it's like who do you want to party with? Like who's the best at flip cup? Like those are like to me that's like what the tight end bros are like. That it's just like after those first 5, 6, 7 that we're talking about, like I'll just take whoever's left. And I can get for a value and try again next time and try it again the next time. Sort of.
There's a few I would really not mind having outside of the top 8 that I would happily move off Kelsey for like Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Dallas Goedert, and like I need a plus. Obviously, give me a mid to late second, and I'm fine making that deal this offseason. I think Kelsey's about done. Those are guys that I kind of had circled at the tight end position of like Goddard, Ingram, Njoku. I think those are guys that can give you, 12 to 14 points on a season with 25 to 30 point spike weeks, and instead of paying an extreme premium for maybe 17 points a game and 1 or 2 more spike games throughout the year than what those guys will provide. So a lot has been made this year about the tight end position being deeper than it has been in a decade in fantasy because this rookie tight end class has really met expectations in a big way, I would say. We could say Kincaid's overrated and overvalued, and maybe he is, but like he still met expectations. So he still produced for a 6-week stretch at the top 5 level. Overall, so the way I'm approaching the tight end position is I am not factoring in scarcity as much as I used to with this position. I don't feel as much pressure as I did 4 months ago to have a top 5 tight end on my roster. I start to think, okay, I can get by with Evan Ingram, Cole Kmet, and Njoku, and stuff like that.
Matt, you said, and it sounds like you have Kelsey and then Kittle. Is Kittle your next up, or is it someone else?
I think it would be Kittle by default, kind of, but I don't love Kittle a ton more.
So my question is, you were trading Kelsey for Ingram in a second. What are you trading? Like, what is the minimum you're selling if you have Kittle? It sounds like you probably don't have a lot of Kittle, if any. But if you had Kittle on your team, what are you selling him for?
I do have one. If you give me any kind of plus on top of Ingram and Njoku for Kittle, I'm going to entertain it. Like if you give me a late second, if you give me the 212 in 2024, I'm probably going to give you Kittle for Ingram and the 212. That's how little of a gap I see between tight end 8 through tight end 11. To me, there would be a top after tight end 7.
So that's signaling you don't have much of a gap between Kelsey and Kittle either.
No, so I was just going to say Kelsey and Kittle. I think to me that's where there's a solid tier break. Kelsey is kind of in his own tier at tight end 7, I think, because I do expect him to produce 18 points a game or whatever next year. Kittle, I do not expect to produce that. I'm struggling to figure out why Kittle is even ranked higher than Dallas Goedert at all.
Oh my God. Okay, that hurt me. So you're all in on Purdy. There must be some type of preconceived Kittle injuries or up and down flat. To me, Kittle is an awesome weapon. He's not as old as people think. Every time he plays, 30. He has massive games. He's a nasty football player.
But that's my only point with Kittle is I don't view him as a difference maker. He's a solid 14 point per game fantasy tight end. That's how I look at him. So
I think he has massive weeks that win games, but that's for each their own, I guess.
So is Evan Ingram though.
And you know this, I'm a big Kelsey, or I'm sorry, I am a big Kelsey guy, but a big Kittle guy as well. I think he was
You are,
massively undervalued this past year, and I'm getting massive amounts of return on him being a stud. Okay, so we're talking tight ends. We were talking Dalton Kincaid at length. To me, this is a nice transition. We can transfer or segue over to one of his current teammates, and that is James Cook. He's getting a lot of talk on Twitter. I saw it all over my feed. Ooh, we have a join. Little special guest.
So guys, just decided to hop in and crash the party for a couple minutes. Just got the kids to bed. Single dad life. I'm not actually a single dad, but my wife's at a Christmas party, so I've been doing single dad duty tonight.
There we go. Man. Yeah, we were just talking tight ends. You missed the fun conversation that is that.
Well, I can tell you this. After the discussion that we had today, talking rookies, I'm pretty done with Kincaid in that top 4 or 5 range. He's like a full tier down for me.
So Matt just kind of broke down. We have him both in like a second or third tier, like 4th or 5th or 6th tight ends, depending on who you talk to. So I think we're on the same page vaguely there, Todd.
Did you guys talk Kincaid versus Pitts? We talked about that a little bit in the Rookies podcast, and we were both Pitts over Kincaid, even though, like I've said in the past, like I'm kind of down on Pitts. But Matt, I'm assuming you're still Pitts.
I took Pitts. Yeah, I think I had Pitts tight end 5, and then Kincaid tight end 6.
Matt, what do you think? Like I've got several Kincaid. Like, what do you think I can do with Kincaid to trade up into literally any other tight end in that range? Like I'm talking like McBride. I mean, Laporta is probably out of the question. Like, look, McBride, Andrews.
I was just telling Brian this, and I don't think Brian really agrees with me. So we might have you might need to be the tiebreaker here. But I said due to the newfound depth of the tight end position, it's the first time, at least this year and in a couple of years, that I don't feel any pressure to roster a top 5 tight end on a contender or not a contender. So if like I have Kincaid and I'm going to be contending next year, what I'm looking to do is probably talk to whoever has Evan Ingram and David Njoku and say, hey, you want to give me a 25 first on top of Evan Ingram for this Dalton Kincaid superstar? Like something like that. I'm going to see what I can get on top of Ingram. And if it's approaching that late first value, that's a smash accept for me. I'm doing that every time. Or I would be fine adding like a mid-second to Kincaid for McBride or Laporta. But I don't know how actionable that really is. I mean, I'm sure it actually is in some leagues, especially for McBride. So that's probably the highest I'd add is like a mid-second.
Todd, before you hopped on, I had kind of mentioned, and it sounds like Matt doesn't fully agree with me. I think McBride is in like the last year, like the last 12 to 18 months ago, Kyle Pitts value, where like you would have to throw the kitchen sink, your firstborn, and a couple,
he's going to be easier to get than Laporta, though.
Yeah, right? I guess they're both in that range of just like, fuck you, pay me kind of thing at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think Laporta is basically in that Pitts mold. I don't really see that with McBride, though. Like, I feel like if you just make a good, strong offer on McBride, I think you could get him with the Kincaid, with Andrews. Whereas, like, there for a while, people weren't even talking to you with Andrews. Like you could take Andrews in a second. Now we're talking like 2 years ago, more with Pitts.
Mm-hmm. Like Andrews is a guy I would be very interested in trying to buy right now. To answer your question, Todd, if I had Kincaid, I would target Mark Andrews. I would much rather have Mark Andrews than Kincaid. And based on the market, that seems like a deal.
Here's the problem with that. This is why I bought a bunch of Mark Andrews when he got hurt.
Yeah,
people are going to expect him to come back, and they've already bit the bullet if they've had him or they just acquired him like I did. So it's going to be challenging for you to. They're going to view him as a top 2 tight end probably,
which is fine. I mean, then at that point, it's like it's the same thing. I've had that happen whenever I try and buy anybody. Like, all right, I respect that. But like, I don't know, man. Like these people that end the season injured, they tend to have still some type of discount attached to them.
One thing that's really cool with Andrews now, with all these young guys like Laporta, McBride, Kincaid, still Pitts, is that Andrews almost feels like the old man in the room now, and he's really not that old.
Yeah,
he's like me with my friends. I'm only 33, but like around my friends, they all think I'm really old. So yeah, I think like Andrews is like the old man in the room, and he has a lot of tread on the tires. Like he's got a long way to go before we really hit like an age cliff. So yeah, I agree, man. I think he's probably the best buy out of the whole group.
I mean, he's 28, so like that is definitely, say he maybe has 4 or 5 years left in the tank. That's, or at least 3 or 4. That'd be nice for sure.
I had several Andrews that I didn't trade, and I am just so thankful that I couldn't really find a buyer for him. At several teams where I had Andrews that I was a contender, I pivoted and bought Hawkinson to replace him, but didn't use Andrews to do it. And I'm just like so thankful that people were just turning their nose away at Andrews during that time.
It's kind of a similar topic, and I want to just, before we go into Bill's teammate of Dalton Kincaid, Tyreek Hill is someone that I am buying in the offseason. Similar to Mark Andrews to a certain degree. I think he's going to be devalued in the offseason pretty aggressively. His upcoming final season potentially is coming up. If he doesn't play again this week, people are going to look down on that for sure. It looks like he's probably trending towards playing, but even still, I think someone is going to either get burned by him or win a championship and see that there's 1 year left on his contract and potentially his career, that I think you could probably pay like a 1 and 2 twos, and I'm paying that every single day of the week.
I thought he had 2 years after this.
I thought his retirement speech was after this upcoming next year. I could be wrong.
Okay, yeah, I thought he said 3 years, with this year being year 1, so this year and 2 more. But yeah, what were you saying? You're looking to pay for him, like 2 late ones?
Anything short of 2 1s, I'm paying for Tyreek Hill all day, every day. I think 1 and 2 twos, or 1 a 2 and a flyer, that sort of thing. I would prefer probably a flyer versus the second 2.
Yeah,
and that gets it done. I think there's going to be a certain level of panic for sure setting in with him, and that's a perfect time to, like, especially like that's a move that can take you from like mid-level to upper echelon in one foul swoop.
Matt, I'm like you. I thought it was through 2025, but I just checked his contract, and he has his contract goes through 2026.
Interesting.
Yeah, so maybe let's just call it. Maybe there might be something. I just briefly looked at that, but just call it through 2025 at minimum. So 2 more years. Yeah, I mean, you can get. Just think about him almost like a Kelsey from 2 years ago. I mean, yeah, 1 and 2 twos. That's just stealing.
So what about this? Are you paying a first, a second, and Calvin Ridley?
Not that far for me.
Yeah. No.
In fact, Calvin Ridley, really quick, I think he's probably a decent buy this offseason. He's struggled. He's really struggled, but I think that there was probably should have been some more expected bumps in the road for him than we really were coming in looking at. And so I think in the offseason, maybe he gets back on the right track. And no, he may not ever be like the wide receiver 1 that we were hoping for, but I think he can get back to the wide receiver 2 level. He just seems out of sync. And I think that he's probably going to get a little bit undervalued. He probably already is.
Well, the reason I asked about Calvin Ridley is because when Brian mentioned a flyer, I just went to keep trade cut real quick, and my mind went to wide receiver 40.
I'm saying more like young guy, like Sky Moore is a terrible example, but like Sky Moore 2 years ago kind of thing, or last year, that type of guy that people
I'm
think
trying to
has
help
a
our
lot of-
audience out and find a current day example of that. So, like Jahan Dotson, yes, of course, right?
Okay, I was going to say Tyreek Hill and Tyreek Hill for Josh Downs and a first.
Yeah, all day, every day.
You're taking Tyreek.
Yep.
Yeah, I would too. I'm slowly, Matt. Yeah, you weren't there, but I'm slowly getting out on Josh Downs. I'm kind of concerned.
No, I mean you were last week too. I'm still in
What's
on
like
Downs.
what's
Still gonna be
the
buying
difference
Downs.
between like Josh Downs and Calvin Ridley then?
Calvin Ridley's still earning targets, though he's not doing a whole lot with them. But he's earning targets, and Josh Downs, outside of one game the last 5 weeks, isn't earning targets.
Matt.
I'm gonna stay pretty diamond hands with Josh Downs. Think he's really good. I think he showed a decent amount this year to justify his value, but I also understand being concerned. So
It's been bad lately.
yeah, yeah, well, yeah.
I'm holding out hope. That's not me giving up on Josh Downs like it sounds like Todd kind of is, but
I might be
in the middle.
in the buy Josh. If I can start getting Josh Downs for mid-second, I'm going to be doing that all day, every day. So like,
I bet you can in rookie season.
yeah. So I think Downs is probably going to be a heavy target of mine. We're talking about off-season buys here. I went lower on the list when we were talking about guys that we were trying to buy. I kind of went outside the top 24 guys. So I have a few guys here for receivers. One of them you mentioned a week or so ago, Brian, Amari Cooper. I don't think there's a lot to talk about there. We all agree he's a very good buy next year. He's undervalued. He's approaching 30. Still productive, still looks as good as he has in the last couple of years. So I think he's a strong buy at wide receiver 43 on Keep Trade Cut. Another guy I'm interested in buying that's 3 spots lower than him on Keep Trade Cut, wide receiver 46, is Jacoby Myers, who also has kind of fallen off a little bit recently after a very hot early to mid-season stretch. And
what would you want to pay for Jacoby Myers?
Like a late second.
Okay. I think that's
and again, Jacoby is going to be one of those guys where I'm not really going to send out an offer for just him. I'm probably going to, package him with someone else or put him as a plus that I want on top of a deal where I'm tearing down a little bit. So Jacoby and Amari are my 2 wide receiver buys that I'm kind of looking at.
So I'll give you a tit for tat here. So someone that I'm selling, and this is like, maybe this is a little lazy and maybe this is what everyone would want to do, but I'm selling Kyren Williams in the offseason, and I'm targeting not a 24 one, but a 25 one, or even a 26 one, honestly. I'm targeting someone that has maybe an older team that's like, oh yeah, I would love to just add one running back and fill their roster out, their starting lineup out in August. And just, I'm not comparing him directly to James Robinson, but like we all remember James Robinson and how quick that can happen. For even the most elite running backs, Kyren Williams, still, I don't get what's happening, but I'm happy that I have him in some spots, but I'm selling him for a 25 or 26-1 as soon as I can. I'm going to start shopping him pretty much as soon as the season ends.
I think you're kind of selling yourself short there. I think you can get more than that.
Really?
I was on the Factory Tour podcast earlier with Paul _DFF. He was saying he wouldn't sell for a late first in 2024. I think you could probably get a first and then like a throw-in type guy.
But would he buy for that?
He said that he valued him around like a mid first.
And just really quick, I'll interject here. Is I would buy him right now. Like if I didn't have a trade deadline or a couple weeks ago, I would have bought him for a 1 for sure, because you're getting, what you're getting probably the finish out this year too. Once the offseason's gone, there's a lot less clarity as to what he is and what his role will be.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm basically with you, Brian. I think everybody is going to have the same idea, right? As soon as week 17 is over, you're going to see Kyren Williams hit the trade block in every single one of your leagues. I think everybody's just waiting for that to happen. So,
but here's where it kind of, like, to me, a 25 or a 26 one, they will be devalued, and they might even treat it as a late, like Paul said, a late 24 one. They might think they're buying for a late 25 or 26 one that ends up being 104.
If I was doing it like right when the season ended, one guy that would be interesting to me, though he's disgusting to even talk about, would be getting that first, and then also James Conner. I think he's got like one more year left under his belt, and at least you're getting something on the production side. And there's a world where Kyren Williams only gives you one more year too, like that, like the a la James Robinson, a la Dameon Pierce type guys, where it's just like one and done. So maybe you just get like the first for the value, and then you get the points from James Conner.
So you're saying like a late 24-1 plus James Conner trading away Kyren Williams?
Well, yeah, I was kind of thinking about it more from your like 25 first, that it's more devalued, that's out in the future. So you're getting the quote late 25-1, and you get the points, James Conner, somebody in that like running back 35 range in the offseason that is really devalued because they're old as dirt.
So while we're on the topic of sells, I just made a list of 6 guys I think are sort of egregiously valued right now. So they are major sells to me. We already mentioned a couple of them, but the 6 guys are Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison, Ken Walker, Saquon, and Dalton Kincaid. So we are already touched on Kincaid. We kind of touched on Trevor a little bit earlier, Brian, but it sounds like you don't agree with me that he is egregiously valued. He should not be in any kind of first-round startup discussion. He is in that DAC tier.
Hey, Matt, could you just run through that list one more time? And can you remind me, are you talking about these guys are overvalued, right?
These guys are overvalued by the
community. Yeah. Spit those guys through one more time.
Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison, Ken Walker, Saquon, and Dalton Kincaid. Waddle and Addison, we've kind of talked about all year. Waddle should be like 10 spots lower in everybody's wide receiver ranks than he is. There's no case to be made Waddle is a top 15 dynasty wide receiver. No case at all, I don't think.
That's spicy. Go Waddle versus Addison.
They're both just very overvalued to me. I don't really even know how to compare them.
That's fair. Waddle
is wide receiver 9 on KTC right now. It's stupid. I would literally take Puka over him. I would take Ayuk over him. I would take Devontae Smith. Tank
the one that Todd mentioned, I think, is interesting, to knowing your lack of caring towards DK Metcalf, right? So DK Metcalf versus Jalen Waddle. That's a good one.
I would rather have Jalen Waddle, but Jalen Waddle is the new DK Metcalf. Where like why the fuck is this guy valued in the top 15 when he produces wide receiver 20 numbers every yeah, man. And I guess right, the counterpoint is you got a little taste of what Jalen Waddle could do without last week, and Jalen Waddle had a good game. All right, cool, man. If you want to wait 3 more fucking years for that, you can. But I don't really want a 13 point per game wide receiver who's valued as a wide receiver 9. And
say you have Jalen Waddle, Matt. Who are you targeting within range? You say he's overvalued. Who is someone that you're looking to acquire then?
Well, the last Waddle share I moved off of a couple months ago, Tank Dell. Tank Dell is still valued lower than Jalen Waddle in KTC. He shouldn't be. He should be above him. I would even go lower than that. So, like, the perfect trade to me right now is a guy I hate and a guy I really like. So take that for what it's worth, right? If I could move Jalen Waddle for Deebo Samuel and like an early second, which I'm sure you can do. I think I'm selling myself low there. I think you could probably get more than an early second. Deebo is going to continue outscoring Jalen Waddle for the next 3 years. So unless you're playing Dynasty for 2028, I don't know why you have Waddle above Deebo Samuel.
I think you could have done that 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm not sure you can do it now.
You think people are kind of joining me on like fading Waddle at his current price
Debo in
tag.
the last 4 weeks has literally the most points by any receiver. I think people are definitely taking notice.
I think
so?
like right now, Debo is in that tier with DK, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman. That's where a lot of people have him. And so I think Matt, I think that trade's out there in the offseason. It's not there today. It's there in 2 months when people are looking at their teams and they're like, I don't want 27-year-olds. I want 20. Well, I mean, Waddle's 25 now. So like, or however old Debo is.
2 years is big. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that trade's probably there in 2 months. It's not there even the week after the season's over because it's too fresh. This production is just too fresh. But I think Waddle, I'm kind of with you. I have like maybe 1 or 2 Waddles, and I don't know why. I either need to trade up and go get Garrett Wilson, maybe try to pivot to Olave in some capacity, or pivot down, add a second. The one that I would do is Waddle for Nico in a second.
See, that I don't think you can do. But like we're all probably wrong on this, right? You know, plenty of leagues.
Splitting hairs, yeah.
Yeah, plenty of leagues.
It's funny. So Matt, you said you traded away your last Waddle. Todd, you said you have 1 Waddle. I also only have 1 Waddle. So between the 3 of us, maybe we're not qualified to be.
We have 2 Waddles.
We have 2 total Waddles within 100.
We have like 80 leagues between us.
Dude, we have like 100. We have like
Yeah.
close to 100. I think I have 20. Like Brian's at like 60.
1% Waddle.
It's at this point we're not qualified. Yeah, it's just we're trying to teach like bio engineering.
Man, like I really don't even want to be out on Jalen Waddle like I am, man. It reminds me of like DJ Moore from like 2 years ago, where like I never had any problem with DJ Moore as a player. I always thought he was a very good player until like the conversation was always like he's a top 8 wide receiver. Like, no, the fuck he's not. Like it's an outrageous claim. Like, yeah,
Matt, Waddle for Rashee Rice and Jaden Reed.
Yeah, I'm taking the rookies for sure.
So my thought there was the initial thought was Waddle for Rashee Rice and 2 2s. And then I saw Reed, and so I'm thinking, okay, Reed's probably worth like 2 2s, maybe more than that. So that one's kind of interesting to me. I think Brian and I talked Rice earlier. Where would you stand on that one, Brian?
Yeah, I think I would probably take Waddle. But that doesn't mean I'm buying Waddle. In this,
everybody send Waddle offers to Brian if you hear this podcast and you have Waddle in your league.
That's
Brian. It would be the thought that like you think you can do something cooler with Waddle in that trade.
Yes,
That's kind of.
I'd rather get like a clear cut tier up than maybe a tier up with some added something. And I like Reed, but it's just that's not enough of a needle mover for me. And Matt, just for your sake, I'm definitely coming around more on Rashee Rice after doing some research and digging for the episode. So he's definitely. I was down on him more than you two for sure, and I'll take that L.
I don't know if you guys touched on this. I guess maybe I don't know if it's even a hot take at this point of the year. I'm definitely taking Rashee Rice over JSN. I don't know if that's going to be consensus. I don't know. I think they're going to be ranked around the same.
Same tier for me.
How each finishes the season, but yeah, I would take Rice over JSN right now.
I just don't think if you have JSN, you could get more. I think that's what it would come down to. Like if you were trying to get Rice, you can get more than just Rice right now, I think.
The cool thing about having JSN is that you have just a lot of JSN fans.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of buyers. So at any point along the way, he does anything cool and you're like, you know what, I kind of went out. I think there's going to be a spot where you can get off the train. Whereas Rice, if things went bad at some point, people will probably jump ship quicker. And so if you're holding, you're probably holding for longer because there's probably going to be like maybe 2 or 3 people in your league that you can trade with. Whereas like JSN, there's like 9 or 10, not Matt, but there's a lot of Todds and Bryans in leagues that like JSN.
Yeah.
I still don't hate JSN. I don't think I do, but like I'm just reacting to what I see. And anybody who hasn't downgraded him this year just isn't paying attention.
Oh, I've notably downgraded. I sold all my JSN except for one share actually. So I had a lot of it. I got a lot of in rookie drafts, and I just got out. All at prices that I feel good about. But at some point here, I'm gonna start trying to buy back in, and it's at that like late one price. And with that, I'll make him my buy of the week at the post-season start. JSN trying to buy back in at like wide receiver 25 prices.
This is funny, Todd, because this is like the third or fourth, maybe the fifth time that he's either been a buy or a sell for you this season.
It really is. I mean, he said from the very beginning he was going to time the market, so but he wasn't going to call it that.
I love it. I truly do. Like you're just like
No.
You're playing both sides, and like it's wonderful. It's wonderful theater.
And now he's down according to like where I think he should have been all along, which is like wide receiver 25, which is about where Rashee Rice is on fantasy on fantasy calc, where real trades, real leagues. I don't really give a shit what's on KTC. Like it's complete make-believe land over there. But fantasy calc is real trades, real leagues, and that's where he's at wide receiver 25. That's where I think he probably should have been all along. He never did anything that really justified, once the season started, that justified being wide receiver 12, 13, 14, 15 like he was. That just didn't make any sense. And so at that point, I was like, all right, I'll trade a little bit and go get CeeDee Lamb. I'll trade him and go get Hawkinson.
I would say not. I would almost view it the opposite way. Not only did he not justify his price tag, to me, he proved why he should be lower than his price tag. Man, the best wide receivers in the league usually show it by now, and he has not showed it. We all know what JJ and Chase did as rookies, but even like AJ Brown, by the end of AJ Brown's rookie season, there was no doubt in anybody's mind that AJ Brown was a future star.
Yeah, but he was also priced as like wide receiver 3 after his rookie season. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson were priced like wide receiver 1, 2, 3 at the end of the rookie season. So to me, that's not really a fair comp because we're pricing JSN as like wide receiver 15, and he's not doing a whole lot. So like I do think he was overpriced, but it's not really a fair comp because we were pricing those guys significantly higher than where we were pricing JSN.
Yes, but that's because JSN is disappointed as a rookie. In the 6 months ago, the expectation.
But I'm saying it's not a fair comp.
6 months ago, the expectation for JSN was that he would become a top 5 dynasty wide receiver for sure. That was the expectation coming into the league.
Right, and if he had played better, then you move him up. But like he didn't, so you keep him where he's at. Whereas like those guys did perform.
Right, so I'm just saying, like I think his rookie year showed he never belonged in that conversation. That's my only point. He was never a prospect on that level.
So I think like a fair comp would be like Olave or Garrett Wilson, where we had them. I think probably Olave like around wide receiver 10 or 12, like this time last year. I'm obviously spitballing here. And Olave and Garrett Wilson did a whole lot more than JSN did this year.
If we play like the revisionist history game, I think a lot of the JSN hype was centered around a season or a couple of games that he had while teammates with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. I don't think I'm giving any new information or really impactful information, but just if you want to play the I told you so game, like that is the reason why he was hyped up as much as he was hyped up. And it also may be the reason why people are holding on, right? So we all, I think all here believe in Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, and JSN kind of alphaed both of them for a bit.
No doubt about it. That 1 year, and even outside of that 1 year, he was awesome in college. No doubt about that. He was a phenomenal college player. I think he's a very good NFL player. I don't see difference making production in his future. Let
me pivot the conversation here before we wrap. One other person, and I know Matt's going to hate this, I'm buying in the offseason, and this is dependent on the Bears getting the first pick in the draft. I am buying Justin Fields before they make the first pick, and I think that is going to significantly diminish his value. I think people are going to panic beyond what they've already panicked with him, and I think he'll be available for a very, very obtainable price. And
late 1 and 2, you paying that?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I think there might be situations where you might be able to get him for a late one. I mean, people that have him are probably like Fields fans, so
I
kind
think
of
by
sleep
now the
dependent.
person who has Fields most likely is a believer.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
was
like
gonna say
Fields is
I
my
would I would
second most owned QB behind
I was gonna
Herbert.
say the value would be like, to me, I would pay like a 1 and 2 twos or a 1 and a 2 and again like
Do
a
you
fun
guys?
flyer.
I don't mind having Justin Fields as an offseason buy. I got to check in with you guys. It's week 15. Do you guys still have Justin Fields over Jordan Love in Dynasty?
They're probably I'm much higher on Jordan Love than I was like obviously 6 weeks ago. Yeah, I probably have them in the same tier, and probably now that you mentioned it, a good pivot for me would be to check in with the Jordan Love owner given that I have a lot of Fields, and just say, hey, can I get something plus? But if I could just pick one or the other, I'd probably just keep my Fields.
I pick Fields, but we all understand that it's pretty fluid. And that's it's I'm not gonna take lock take and just say it's Justin Fields because he's Justin Fields. So
You sort of are
mean,
right now, but yeah.
Not really. I think you're a little bit of a Packers homer too. So that's the other side of it.
I'm a Packers homer, but yeah, Fields is fucking terrible.
I mean,
he's one of the worst quarterbacks.
you can play both. You can play both games. I mean, he rushes a lot. He's in a bad system, so it's like it's the anti Brock Purdy, right? He's in a bad system and rushes, and Purdy's in a good system and doesn't rush. There we go.
So Fields has also not been the worst quarterback in the NFL. He's actually been not that bad.
Bottom 5.
He's also not been bottom 5, but he's
I
not
think
been.
I think he's been bottom 5.
As a Packers fan, talking about Bears players,
I've said the entire time. My friends that know me can testify to this. I do not dislike the Bears. I like the Bears. I was a huge Justin Fields supporter. The guy has been fucking terrible for 3 years. At some point, we just got to say he's not an NFL quarterback, man.
I would probably want, like, with my Fields, like I would want something on top, just like a 2-for-2 type trade that like I get something that I like, even though the other two pieces might be pretty much even.
Yeah.
But they would be same tier for me. Nothing like I'm fine. I'm fine trading within that tier.
I just want to point out he's had some better games. So if we're playing the Jordan Love game, Jordan Love has had some undoubtedly great games this year, but he's also had some absolute stinkers that you're aware of as well, Matt, right? So like Fields
has started twice as many games as Love. He has a lot more experience.
Okay. Well, it's on the same, like, experience aside, that it's level playing field because we're just saying one or the other. It's not like Jordan Love doesn't get like another 3 years.
Right, but like I'm saying, Jordan Love has played like 15 games. More than half of them have been good. Fields has played like 25 games. Like 20 of them have been bad. So, I mean, they have the same amount of good games, sure, but Fields has played a shitload more. And their percentage of good games, Love is way higher. And this is just talking about real life. I don't know if fantasy applies there. I think it probably does at least a little bit of the time. But yeah, man, been saying this for like the last 6 weeks. My point has not changed. I like that you guys disagree because we don't disagree that often on the show. But like Fields is not an NFL quarterback. I would not look at him as like, oh man, I want to try. Like, there's nothing there.
Really quickly, he had 1,100 rushing yards last year. That's something.
That's awesome, dude. He was amazing last year. Yeah, no, like,
and this year he has.
If you tell me Fields is going to start
a higher completion percentage, like, to me, it's a statement of potentially improvement, I guess, is the point.
So
how long are we going to wait for that improvement? Like,
so I don't think that any of us are probably film grade affluent, so I will defer to PFF, and if we don't like PFF, we can use something else maybe. But PFF passer grade, like typically like over 70 is kind of like a decent arbitrary number of like good versus bad. And you, Matt, you said he's had most of his games have been bad, and over half of Jordan Love's have been good.
Yeah.
Jordan Love, 4 out of 14 games are over 70. Of course, these are arbitrary numbers that I'm kind of drawing the line in the sand on 70. So PFF passer grade, over 70 for Jordan Love, 4 out of 14. Fields, 4 out of 10 are over 70. Now, we could probably cut it another way and look at it. Jordan Love has had more games over 90 and Fields hasn't had any games over 90. So you can look at it a few different ways. I don't think that there is a cataclysmic or huge chasmic difference between the two that you're stating. I do think that there's definitely a difference. I think that Jordan Love is a better passer, but I don't know that it's as crazy as what you're making it sound like. What you're making it sound like they're not even in the same. Like Justin Fields shouldn't even be on the football field.
They're not in the same universe for me. Like,
PFF is pretty reliable.
If we're talking about real life, Jordan Fields or Justin Fields is maybe going to be a starter next year. We don't even know that. Jordan Love is about to sign a $200 million contract. They're not even in the same universe in real life as quarterbacks. And if PFF thinks they are, PFF is wrong.
Falcom.
They're just wrong. And I would say that the general NFL media does not agree with PFF at all. The general storyline between all of them is there's a reason that for the second straight year, Fields' team is going to finish as a bottom 5-10 team. And in Love's first year starting, he's threatening to make the playoffs with the youngest offense in NFL history. They're not in the same universe as NFL.
Matt, let's make a bet for one of our league fees next year, whether Justin Fields is a starter.
No, because I think he will be a starter, but I will I will happily make any type of Jordan Love versus Justin Fields ADP bet 12 months from now. Like, I would love to do that if we want to do that.
It's funny because it's like your primary argument is we don't know if he's going to be a starter next year, but you think he is going to be a starter next year.
I said I think he might be, but like if he is, I mean, he's not going to have any kind of leash at all, right? Like, it's not like he's not going to go into a training camp as like the uncontested starter with no other competition, and that's his job. He hasn't earned that, right? I mean,
I think the clear division here between us, besides a little bit of fanhood bias, I'm not going to say you're a total homer in this case. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but I think it's obvious. Justin Fields has shown already that he can be an elite fantasy asset in that one season that you are discounting, but fine. If that never happens again, fine. But Jordan Love hasn't proven that he can be an elite asset. So if they're valued similarly and one person has shown tried and true that they can do that elite thing, and then you're saying I'd rather a guy that's probably like a conventional QB 12 to 18 for the next 7 to 8 years or something like that on a best case scenario.
Jordan Love's a top 10 QB this year. He's not like a low end QB 2, man. He's QB 8 on the season right now. Jordan Love has decent upside, man. He's going to be a low end QB 1. He's got some rushing upside. He loves to throw deep. He's got a lot of arm talent. He's got some young receivers. Jordan Love isn't Derek Carr. That's the thing I'm going to object to here is talking about Jordan Love like he has no upside. That's not true. If you give me 5 years of low end QB1 production versus 1 year of QB5 production and 4 years of this guy might lose his job, yeah, I'll just take the low end QB1 because there's not going to be that much difference points per game between them, even in Fields' highest of highs, and Fields' lowest of lows is going to be he's fucking benched and he's not a QB anymore. I don't see that in Jordan Love's future.
Well, five weeks ago, going into the Thanksgiving game, in fact, on this podcast, you were talking about how it was pretty pessimistic look with Jordan Love. This was prior to the Thanksgiving game, and then he rattled off a couple in like 2 of the best games for any quarterback all season. So I don't want to discredit that at all. But prior to that,
he had a
there was a long
mid-season, but I've been pretty positive on Love like all year on this podcast. I have not really.
Yes, until like mid-season, and then you were pretty down on him. And at that point, we were kind of like,
yeah.
I lowered a bit. I was never off on Jordan.
We got receipts out on camera though.
I'd love to see him,
But
man.
there was doubt. We're not saying that you quit on him, but there was doubt. Very
Oh
clear
yeah,
doubt.
he had a few bad games for sure. But I again, we can pull up any receipts you guys want. I never gave up on this guy.
I think you gave up, but there became a question of like, is he the franchise starter? And you just said a second ago, there's no question that he.
Yeah, now there's not. Yeah, now there's.
Well,
not.
yeah, I mean, 5 games changes that never again there can be a question. Like, what if he has 5 bad games in a row? He just had 2 mediocre games.
No, there's no questions about Jordan Love's future. If we want to make a bet on that, we can make a bet on that. Jordan Love's getting a 4 or 5 year Daniel Jones contract. I'm sure of this this offseason. He's getting paid. So maybe that's
the Daniel Jones contract reference got me.
Oh yeah, no, hey, maybe that's who he is. But like, I mean, we could go Derek Carr. Really, anyone who signs these contracts turns out to be bad usually. So maybe that's Jordan Love's future. But like, there's no question Jordan Love is the future quarterback.
You do have to admit that's pretty funny though. Like the Daniel Jones. Like I understand that like in context you were just like saying that type of contract after a season of X, but it's funny that Daniel Jones is like the stamp of approval.
Tie the bow on this for all of us people that absolutely despise Jordan Love, and tell us what if we want to go buy. What is the buy price that we should look to buy? Like somebody like you that has him, give us an idea of what would you sell for, which obviously is going to be much higher. Also, what would you buy for? What would you recommend people buying for?
So if I just had to say Jordan Love's value, it's probably like a 106 and 206, I think is about right for him. But the thing I'm trying to do that I don't think you guys are trying to do is like if I have Trevor Lawrence, man, I'm definitely going to the Jordan Love owner and saying, hey, well, what do you want to give me on top of Love for Trevor? If I have Anthony Richardson, I'm saying the same thing. If I have Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, I'm saying the same thing. Hey, what are you going to give me on top of Love for Joe Burrow, who's way, way better? Can I get 2 firsts? Can I get first and Rashee Rice? Can I get a first and player X? So that's what I'm trying to do. I think you guys are often trying to tier up, which I don't disagree with, but generally it's not my style. Generally, I don't mind tiering down and saying, hey, you want this QB that I think is pretty overvalued? Give me your QB who I think is undervalued, and let's make up the difference. First and second, or first and first, or whatever the difference is. So that's probably how I'm trying to acquire Love.
Okay, so I like that. So I have a lot of Herbert. I mentioned he's my number 1 owned quarterback. Fields my second most owned quarterback. So I think for my kind of portfolio of teams, mine would be maybe take one of my Herberts. I'm pretty bullish on Herbert, like in his future. But take one of my Herberts, pivot down, try to add. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what I would be wanting. Probably like Jordan Love and like give me like a 26 first and like something maybe like very, very minimal.
I was gonna say I'd want more than that for Herbert. No, I think you can ask for more than that. I think give me a 24 and 26 first.
Yeah, maybe you can. I don't know. But that type of move, and then also Fields, I like a 2 for 2. So like Fields for Love being a portion of that trade, and then another portion of that trade being like a 1-for-1 swap of just like something I like more that's probably in the same tier. But I would be looking to move the Fields trade after Fields has solidified his new landing spot. I'm not going to try to like it may be difficult to make that trade with Kyren Williams looming.
As much as a homer as I am, as much as I love Jordan Love, if I'm tearing down from Burrow and Herbert, I'm contacting the Brock Purdy owner first, not Jordan Love. But Jordan Love is like my next call after that. But again, this goes back to Brock as a guy that I think the market's catching up on Brock, though. I don't think you can really get him at a discount like you could even 4 weeks ago. I think he's kind of hitting that early second round startup value range or coming close to it.
That was a fun tangent that we went on there.
Yeah, might need to wrap it up a little bit.
After
30-minute
I didn't
episode
allow
that turned
Matt
into 78 minutes.
Yeah, after I didn't allow Matt to talk about any Packers for like 8 weeks, This was much needed. He was like
Came out
he was
swinging,
like the I mean, he was like the guy that couldn't get a girl to come home for like 6 months, and so he finally got there.
Oh man, that's ruthless. Yeah. All right. I think we've touched on enough today. Todd and I have seemingly talked for 2.5 hours today.